Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast, learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 129, and I have the pleasure of talking to Dale Allen-Rowse, a former theater performer turned successful real estate professional and now an author of Shamanic Practitioner. After working with Celine Dion's Las Vegas show and collaborating with Franco Dragone, Dale discovered his true calling as a storyteller and a spiritual guide, channeling his work through the journey of a Dark Shaman trilogy. Now a coach, author, and spiritual visionary, Dale blends his expertise in real estate, energy work, and automatic writing to challenge the status quo and inspire personal evolution. Enjoy the conversation. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Dale. How are you, Dale?
I am so good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm excited to get into this conversation because we had a pre-conversation and we delved into some really delicious pieces that
Sure.
really curbed my interest in having this delicious conversation to be able to share with the world. So I'm excited about getting into this. So
Great.
yes. So thank you for being open and available and receptive for the conversation. Appreciate it.
You bet.
I am curious to learn a little bit more, not only in terms of all the experiences that you bring to the table from your traditional way of living, in terms of your trained skills, if you will, of in classical dance, but also lean that journey in itself and leaning it into working with individuals pretty high profile
Mhm.
and that expanding across the world, essentially.
Yeah.
And now putting you in a place of shamanism.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty profound of that massive journey that you've taken in this young, tender age of your life. It's
Yes.
it's pretty interesting and pretty profound. So through all of that and your introspective and your reflective space, what is it you believe about yourself? And does it define who you are at this juncture of your life?
Oh, very much so. And yes, it's been a really crazy journey to get me to this place. I have had
Yeah.
an incredible life. I have been able to manifest some really powerful things in my life, from being on stage with Celine Dion for many years to being on Broadway to being in a bunch of ballet companies. Like, I just had a really big life in theater, which then led me into another really big life in real estate.
Right.
And while all of that was good, that's all the superficial stuff. That's the making the money, that's being impressive, that's, all these things that in the Western world we tend to check as boxes of success.
Yes.
Having gone through all of this and then having it all basically stripped away through, oddly enough, the same neurological movement disorder as Celine Dion has, her and I
Mhm.
share the same
Mhm.
brain disease, having it all and then having it all taken away,
Mhm.
right? That has been the greatest gift of my life. And it's one thing I really work with my own coaching clients in helping them to understand why you're being brought this gift, right? Because it took me a long time and I had to write a bunch of books about this process of becoming disabled, right? Of going from being a
Right.
very high performing individual on stage to not being able to leave the house for several years because you can't walk.
Yes.
You know, going from high performing to disabled
Yeah.
is a real process that I'm so blessed for and that I wouldn't trade for anything, right? Because it's through that all the, job stuff, all the success stuff, all of the shiny objects, right, was
Mm.
taking taken away, and I was forced to really examine myself, like what's left? Who is Dale? Like what's important to me, and like who am I and why am I really here? Right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not here to be impressive. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to do all these things that we go through. And like I said, just check off the boxes of, oh, okay, bought the dream house, that's paid for, check. Got the dream job, that's, it, check. And then I had all these things, and yet internally, I wasn't fulfilled.
Right.
Internally, I wasn't so satisfied. And it was so confusing to me to have like accomplished all the things we're told to go out and do,
Yeah.
only to be left, um, broken, miserable.
Mm.
Like it was just such an interesting thing. So my message always is, and my message always will be, the problem is the portal, right?
Yep.
And to not shy away from what we can perceive as a problem, because it's not a problem, it's a gift,
That's
right? It's
right.
something that's being brought to your doorstep and saying, okay, deal with this. This is your next level of learning. And once I adopted that, because, as if you've watched Celine's, movie about her
Documentary.
condition, they really don't offer a lot in terms of solutions at the doctor's office. I was
No.
offered either Botox to essentially deaden the parts of me that were being
That's
overly
right.
active that I couldn't control.
Yeah.
Well, what's in every corner of you, that's just not an option. Like, unless you're
Yeah.
just going to completely like flush my entire system with Botox, it's not going to work,
Okay.
right? And then the
Yeah.
other option was a deep brain stimulation, which I
Mm.
was not particularly comfortable with.
Okay.
So it left me to devise my own program, like look at the guy in the mirror and go, okay, what are you going to do about it? And the
Right.
only thing I could come up with is that, like, dystonia or stiff person syndrome is the
Yeah.
name of it.
Mm.
But to be dystonic is to be out of alignment.
Right.
Kind of my first clue. I'm like, okay, something's
Hmm.
off here, something
Hmm.
within me. And do I have control of that? Like that was the
Sure.
question I sought to answer. Is
Right.
this within my control to cure myself? And it's through that process of just constantly chasing that down. I was meditating for hours a day. I was just doing everything I could to excavate my entire system. I joined every single type of energy work program that I
Hmm.
could find in order to better understand my own personal resonance and
Sure.
what am I in control of and what am I not. Well,
Yes.
you're in control of the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? We're powerful manifesting machines.
Yeah.
It's just we haven't been taught appropriately where the levers are.
Right. Right. Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of like, in a nutshell, the journey of how I got from, on Broadway and being on stage with Celine every night to
Hmm.
where I am today, which is, well, maybe on paper it looks much smaller. Maybe on paper it looks much more like not having the big life, right?
Hmm.
That so many people are chasing and trying to be impressive with, right? Maybe
Hmm.
it doesn't look like that anymore, but it is so much more rewarding when you get your world to only be focused on the internal universe of you,
Yeah.
not the external universe of you, right? And to
Yes.
be focused in place, not trying to get anywhere, not trying to strive, not trying to effort, not trying to do anything other than exist in the moment as creator intended.
Hmm. Hmm. So what does that define? How does that define you?
That is the journey, and that has been the question that I have had to, ask myself repeatedly. How does that define me, right?
Hmm.
What are my definitions? Do I have definitions? Like,
Hmm.
what does that look like? And ultimately, what it came down to for me is there's nothing to do. Right? There's just the presence of you in the moment, right? And
Hmm.
to shackle yourself, literally to untie yourself, to undo yourself from your own opinions, to undo yourself from your own limiting beliefs. Because here's
Hmm.
the thing, the universe is far more flexible than we've ever been taught.
Hmm.
And we are far more powerful at influencing the matrix than we've ever been taught,
Mhm.
right? Manifesting now in any area of your life is now more of a science than just a belief. There are
Right.
actual steps that you can study. This is how you manifest the thing,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Yeah. And so really going down that path and discovering, which is the craziest thing, like in a way, your own holiness, right? Your
Mm.
own
Mm.
purity, your own like
Mhm.
inner God in a
Mhm.
way, and
Mhm.
finding and connecting with that you are not separate from anything in the universe, that you have the ability to walk into a room and affect it all.
Mhm.
Right? That's when the real magic begins because most people will walk into a room and it's just all affecting them and they're,
They're
in
receiving it.
chaos. Right,
Mhm.
because they themselves are not a solid container, right?
Yes.
Let alone are they a solid container that's affecting the environment. The
Right.
environment is affecting them and they're just
Yes.
reacting to everything
That's
because they don't
right.
have a solid container that is vibing strongly in a certain way with
Mhm.
where they're going in life.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with this huge aha and this beautiful gift and opportunity that you've been presented with, what do you feel are some of the attributes that are connected to you stepping into it and having the aha and embodying it more and more now?
Yeah, it's all personal power. And personal
Mm.
power is defined by your ability to feel bigger than your problems, right? Most people, their problems feel bigger than them and they feel
Uh-huh.
overwhelmed, right? To completely reverse that and know you don't have problems, you're just manifesting incorrectly,
Mm.
right? Make
That's right.
that switch, right? There's nothing that's happening without your say so. There's nothing that's happening without your personal guidance. So if there's
Yeah.
stuff that's going on in your life that you don't like, that's you doing stuff that you don't like,
Right.
right? And to then step into the power of knowing how powerful you are, that you have the ability to influence every single day, every single decision, every single energetic exchange by what you yourself are putting out into the matrix, which then affects the return.
Yes. Yes. What are those, what do you believe are those attributes that people can embody and people can hone into and recognize whether they have more of it, they have less of it, they don't have any of it, and
Right.
can try and cultivate for themselves based on your own experiences? What would those be?
Yeah, sure. So everything you're looking for in life, everything,
Hmm.
everything you seek is found on the other side of stillness.
Hmm.
Right.
Okay.
And I mean, it's first and foremost like sloughing off any idea of who you are, right? And not participating in identification, right?
Right.
To like beyond even your personality, beyond like who you are, beyond your story. Ooh,
Yes.
gosh, getting rid of story is huge.
Yes.
Getting rid of the timeline is huge, right?
Hmm.
And to know that the past and the future are far off distant lands that no one has ever visited.
Right.
They do not exist,
Mm.
right? You can think about them, but you're creating an illusion, right?
Hmm.
It's not real. It's an illusion, right? If
Hmm.
your problem isn't in the room, you don't have a problem. You
Hmm.
have an illusion. And
Hmm.
it's teaching people the difference between thoughts, which are illusion, essentially nothing real, nothing tangible, versus being grounded in the present moment, only dealing with what's in the room, right? Knowing where you are in time and space, that's huge,
Hmm.
right? With most people, when I get in front of them and we're doing an energy, session,
Hmm.
the first thing I do is put my hands on them, right?
Hmm.
And you can tell so much about who they are just by their vibration, by their frequency,
Sure.
by the way that they're existing as a vibration on planet Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the first thing I do is I put my hands on them just to really, touch them to make sure that they feel seen, secure, know where they are, all of that. But at the same time, I'm reading them, right? I'm
Hmm.
reading their energy band. I'm
Hmm.
reading who they are, what they're telegraphing to the rest of the world,
That's right.
because that is the genesis of all manifestation is how you're
Yes.
vibing. right? Because
That's
if you're
right.
vibing like a
Absolutely.
crappy person, you're just going to manifest crappy stuff, right? But
Yeah.
if you're vibing as joy, if you're vibing as pure love, as a frequency, right, then you're going to have a very different life.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
with that and helping people to understand the power of stillness,
Hmm.
right? And the power of spending time with yourself, with your mind, getting clear on what's real and what's not real. And everything that's not in the conscious present moment is illusion. It's not real. And that's why, I sometimes jokingly say that the angels are jealous of us, right? Because we have
Yeah.
the opportunities to
That's
be
right.
in a
We get.
body with
Hmm.
senses and experience things
Yeah.
and meet
Yeah.
God in the conscious present moment. Like so few are able to, because while like our animals are able to be present to the moment, they're
Hmm.
not necessarily present to the same conscious moment that we are. We're
Absolutely.
tapping into something beyond them because we
Yes.
have the ability to figure things out. Now that's a double-edged sword.
That's right. That is true. That is
You know,
true. Yes.
it's the
Exactly.
basis for most suffering in the world is our imagination. We
Hmm.
suffer in the imagination so much. We use, especially artists, like artists, they're so creative and they just use that creativity to like imagine all this terrible stuff that could be possible. And you're like, whoa, 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 don't go there. Right? Because
Hmm.
once you start to go there and you start to use your imagination to harm yourself, like
Hmm.
that's the first quality of being out of control, right?
Hmm.
So that we only use our imagination for creative purposes, for that which we want, that which we speak about in order to manifest it into the here and now when it's part of being so powerful on earth.
Right. Right. But getting to that point is a lifetime in itself
Can be, yes.
for many.
Yeah. Um, However, if you look back at, let's take the Olympics as an example, right? And what athletes were doing, 50
Hmm.
years ago compared to
Hmm.
what athletes are doing today, right?
Hmm.
There's an evolution of learning and process and teaching and things that where humans are able to do more, better, impressive stuff, reach better goals, all of that, right?
Hmm.
Same with the experience that we're having right now, especially in America, which tends to be very dense, right? It
Hmm.
tends very black and white, and you're either
Yeah.
in one camp or you're in the other, right?
Right.
But we're having this learning process, and you see it, you see the language, right, popping up even on the judges on The Voice or American Idol. I
Hmm.
hear the whispers of higher consciousness in all sorts of places that you didn't before. And
Yeah.
that's the magic that we're living in right now. And you can either, and I always say that there's only perfection until you say otherwise, but don't
Hmm.
say otherwise.
Hmm.
Don't say otherwise. Don't
Hmm.
say otherwise. There is only perfection. And it's in
Correct.
alignment with that truth that this is not only, God's plane, but our plane, and that we do that in tandem,
Hmm.
conjunction, right? In
Hmm.
conjunction with spirit to get to where we're going. We're not fighting against anything, right? We're harnessing the power of the universe. We're harnessing the power of our mind. We're harnessing the power of visualization in order to get it to what it is that you want.
Correct.
And I love working with creatives because they have such a big imagination, right? And they just don't know what to do with that massive computer that can do all kinds of crazy things out of nowhere. And it's just phenomenal what the human
Hmm.
mind can come up with, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, it
but
is.
it's just then teaching them to harness the power of that creativity because they don't know that they can actually just lop off the part of their thought system
Yeah.
that no longer serves them,
Right.
right?
Right.
And kind of the first step I always encourage people to do is to go on a negativity diet,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
Eradicate negativity from your thinking, your thoughts, your words, right? And the first thing that happened when I did that, I went 30 days. I was like, I'm going to challenge myself. Okay, I'm not going to say or do anything, negative or crappy for 30 days. And what I was most surprised about is through that process, my skin cleared up.
Mm.
I was like, oh, there's like real world application here. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you start to inhabit a different vibe, it
Yeah,
shows up in the physical in a thousand different ways.
that's
Like
right.
beyond just actually starting to look younger and have
Yeah,
my skin like be better. Like that was
yeah.
just the superficial like bonus gifts, like gift with purchase that I wasn't expecting.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much opportunity and there's so much evidence that we have accessible to us. But I
Yes.
truly believe once a person is open and receptive to be able to see and hear it, then they'll see it everywhere. So you made a reference to the dialogue or the language and the thought process and what's been channeled through, be it the people on The Voice or be it on
Yeah.
TV or whatever that is. I see that very differently in your ear is tuned in to hearing it
Mhm.
now on that, just as I would listen to a song that was published and written and created before I was even born, and I can tune into what the essence of that is from that versus not so relevant current day kind of music, but in some tones like the classical or the instrumental kind of tones, you can hear
Yeah.
that vibrational frequency and tension behind it, which translates to ultimately, in my vantage point, is an element of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And you're right.
oozes from it all, but
But
we
it
have to
comes
we
from
have
you
to tune
trusting
into
yourself.
it.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So there's a part, and I actually learned about this. I used to be a business coach. I used to teach real estate agents how to be agents, right? That was my job
Okay.
for many years.
Uh-huh.
And so in the business coaching world, I was first introduced to a lot of these concepts, such as the reticulated activator, which is what we're
Yeah.
talking about. So
Yeah.
the part of the brain that
That's right.
you, like, when you buy a yellow,
Yeah,
VW,
yeah,
you
yeah.
start seeing them everywhere, whereas before you hadn't seen them. But
That's
you'd kind
right.
of plugged it into your brain that you have this car now, and you
That's
start
right.
seeing it everywhere, right? So it's the same thing with either energy and
Yeah,
that's what informs you and ultimately creates your reality, right?
yeah.
Is what you're seeing and picking up. And your reticulated activator is your subconscious
Just tunes
looking
into it.
for things without you consciously being aware of it, but then seeing
Exactly.
it everywhere. And so if you're plugging into that part of your brain, love and joy and
Mhm.
like nothing but amazing expectations for the future, which is what I very much hold.
Yeah.
Once you have that, that changes your world because it changes your perception of the
Mhm.
world. You're no
Mhm.
longer living in a world that's at war.
That's
You're
right.
living in a world that's healing and going through a process and
Yeah.
very much headed towards love.
Yes, absolutely. Yet being in a position of holding that frequency and holding that perspective is probably the most crucial based on the opportunity we have of stepping into a collective narrative that can gobble you up like that.
Correct. And it's the hardest part to switch from being in a negative mind to a
Yes.
loving and positive mind,
That
right?
will test you. That will test your strength, 100%.
Right. And you'll feel crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because what you have to do in order to make that
To get
switch,
there. Yeah.
it's like a habit. And you have to, again, it was like me going on my 30-day negativity diet,
Right.
right? Like you have to practice and you have to be vigilant. You have to be
Disciplined.
vigilant to your vision of what could be and
Yeah.
deny what is. In a
Yeah.
way, it's kind of like being delusional. Like at least that's how it feels in the beginning. You're not actually tapping into what you're clearly seeing and is clearly enraging you and is clearly triggering you. You stop seeing it.
Mhm.
You stop participating in it, right?
Mhm.
Because eventually, with enough practice, it goes away. It
Mhm.
silences itself.
Mhm.
Love is its own weapon. Now, obviously, love is not a weapon, but you know what I'm saying.
That's
Love is
right.
its own defense. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. Love is
Mhm.
its own defense. right?
Yeah.
When you have that joy, when you have
Hmm.
that resonance, when you have that, you continue to attract that in your life because anything that is not that cannot stand to be in its presence,
Yes. Yes. That's
right?
right. That's
That's
right.
how we ultimately, if you want, like, there's no winning, right? But if you want to say that's how we win, right?
Yeah.
That's how we have a better experience of
Yeah.
humanity
Yeah.
is by getting more people to participate in that vibration, in that energy band,
That's
and
right.
stay there where we're all lifting each other up rather than
That's right.
tearing each other down.
That's right.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we're on a different plane. The intention behind it is differently. We're using a different mechanism, if you will, to be able to not have boots on the ground conflict,
right,
rather have an opportunity to elevate and use the power of this beautiful frequency of love, joy, abundance, and all of that to be the tool.
right, right. And again, it's shifting yourself to be that example, right? Just not to be
Mhm.
another lousy human on earth. There's plenty of those, right?
Yeah,
But to like evolve yourself into
yeah,
joy. And
yeah,
that's the process. And it really is it's like any habit.
that's
You
right.
just have to stick with it and make your mind be
Mm,
of a new vibration. And until you've done it for, 30, 60, 90 days,
mm.
it's chaos, right? Because
Yep,
your mind, just habit of mind,
yep,
pulls you back into the gutter and you're
that's
yelling and
right.
screaming at people online and you're doing
Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah,
kinds of,
okay.
but ultimately for me, the switch came when I stopped identifying with the world. I stopped associating with others. It's a process of individuation, right?
Hmm.
To become a true individual,
Yep,
sovereign from others,
yep,
sovereign from the world, right? I do not participate in the world. I do not participate in their problems. I don't participate in others and their stuff for the most
yep.
part. I am sovereign unto myself and I
Hmm.
protect that space and energy with all that I have. So I can
Yeah,
stand in the presence of anybody being any kind of way, any kind
sure.
of crazy, any kind of yelling, any kind of toxic behavior and not engage because that has
Yes,
nothing to, that is not me. I'm not
that's right.
participating. I'm not threatened by any way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because I'm in my own
that's right.
space in my world. I am completely sovereign from the world and its problems, and I do not have to worry about them. I only have to worry about me,
That's
right?
it. If more people did that, we would live very differently on this planet.
Right, because it takes away reaction
Hmm.
and instead it replaces it with manifestation, right? And I know that I can manifest anything I want in the world now. And
Hmm.
I've studied this long enough that, oh my gosh, I mean, and the dominoes just fall one after the next, after
Hmm.
the next, after the next, after the next, once you understand the game.
That's right.
But it's just training yourself long enough and working with yourself long enough to establish those new habits where the habit of mind is
That's
no
right.
longer drawn into the ego.
Yeah,
Ego death
exactly.
real. Ego death has to happen, and ego death will be extremely painful.
Yes,
That's the good news.
that's
Just
that. That is true. Very true. It is the good news. That's interesting. So, with this, I was going to say newfound awareness, but it's really not. But maybe it is to a different version of Dale, of
yes,
tapping into this space and really embodying it and educating and supporting others to it. But ultimately, embodying it to the degree that it's contagious of you just being there rather than being in a space of influence. Your
right.
influence is you and you in your presence of whatever you do day to day. You're going out get groceries, you're getting gas, or whatever it looks like. It's just being that. What are the bigger intentions with your practice of from all that you've learned and all that you have cultivated and embodied? And we'll get into the other part of that question of what's next, but what's the intentions with your craft that you've kind of harnessed so
Yeah.
far?
And it's an evolution, right? It's just
Absolutely.
and so where I am right now and in my practice, the first thing that has surprised me, and this is a little off of the question, but I'm going to
It's all
throw
right.
this in, is the main thing I've learned through having a healing practice is you can't heal others.
No, 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 no. Yes.
You absolutely cannot do the
No, no,
work.
no,
I
no.
can lead them to all the information. I can lead them to the practice. I can lead them to the knowledge. I can lead them to everything that they are seeking, but
Mhm,
ultimately it will be up to them to imbue that lesson into
mhm,
their vibe and
mhm,
into their way. And until
mhm,
they have fully integrated, right, the
mhm,
information that we're talking about and taken the steps to end their own personal toxicity in the
mhm.
world, until they've taken those steps to heal themselves on that level, like that's a them thing. Like I
That's right.
can't, again, I can't do the work for them. But ultimately, the big vision for my practice, like that was just that was really revolutionary for me because it took the pressure off myself to heal others, which you can't do, right? And I'm there to help facilitate anything, but I has to be attractive, and it's why I don't even really advertise for my practice. It's all word of mouth, and
Mhm.
people have, I mean, all kinds of crazy situations that they come up with that they're just out of their mind, they're out of their
Mm,
head, and they don't know
mhm.
how to get back into their body, they don't know how to be
Right,
okay, right? And whether
right.
that's trauma that's been reactivated or whatever else,
That's right.
that's what I really focus on. But for the bigger practice, like the bigger vision of my practice, honestly, I really would like to create a new genre of entertainment.
Mm,
That's where I'm going. I want to create a genre of entertainment whose sole purpose is to elevate the consciousness of either the viewer or the reader. And I was
mm,
very aware of this when I first started writing my first book, Foreign to Me, which
mm.
really was laying the groundwork of all of this that I have since taught myself in a way.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Don't deny how teachable you are unto yourself.
Mm,
Chase down through curiosity and honesty what's true for you.
mm.
Unpack your mind like layer after layer. What's that thought behind the thought? What's making me think that? Why do I feel that way? And just actually unpack everything that you are, first
Yeah.
of all, to understand your core beliefs and whether they're actually serving you where you want to go,
Mhm,
right? So with this new kind of version of entertainment that I want to have brought to the forefront, where
mhm,
its sole purpose is, and that's why, like, this is essentially my story, but it's not on me. I put my story on a fictional character because I
mhm.
wanted it to be a little bit more magical, and I didn't necessarily
Sure.
want it to be reality. And like, who needs another, biography of some unknown person from somewhere, right? It's just
Right.
unnecessary. But I wanted to have the reader watch this really damaged individual go through their process. So it's a series of ahas that the character has that I was hoping that the reader will have as well. Because my books aren't a journey of the five senses, they're a
Mhm,
journey of the soul,
mhm,
right? That's where I came up with shamanism, is actually by writing this book. Now,
mhm,
half my family is Indigenous Canadian,
mhm.
and my cousins were raised on the reservation, and they were like this weird bunch of people that we weren't allowed to associate with because we were in the good Christian side, right? And the two
Of course.
sides just did
They
not
don't meet.
mingle. And yet this my cousins being raised in nature and having a completely different reference point was so fascinating, not because of what they were doing, because it showed me that there's other ways of thinking in the world,
Mhm.
right? And that's where the magic was for me. And
Right.
so writing these books, so I channel I don't write them. I channel them.
That's
There's no
right.
forethought, there's no planning, there's no outline.
Yeah.
I sat down and I literally vomited this book in 6 weeks. It was just, I mean, it was like uncapping a fountain as soon as I
Nice.
started writing. And what I was tapping into is the voice of Inkling, which is really
Mhm,
quiet,
mhm,
really, really quiet, this voice of Inkling. And I was listening to it, and I was like opening the movie screen of my mind and letting the inkling essentially tell me the story to which I was taking notes. But
mhm,
what freaked me out is that I was actually learning information I didn't know as it
mhm.
was coming out onto the page. And so
Nice.
it became this place that I would go to learn. And it doesn't make any sense and well, I mean, now it makes sense now that the product actually exists. But when I'm trying to like explain it to people around me, what I'm
Right.
going through, and what I'm experiencing and why I can't sleep and why I can't eat because this channel of information that I opened up was just thundering through me like a locomotive 24/7. And it was ruining my life. And I
Mm,
didn't know how to control it and I didn't know how to turn it off. And I didn't, it was
mm,
really, it was troublesome.
yeah,
And so once the book was written, I actually found an editor who had his doctorate in shamanism.
nice.
And I was able to take it to him, and I'm like, please help me. I don't understand why I'm receiving this. I don't understand if it's true or accurate or if it's just nonsense. I don't understand what this is or why
Right.
I'm even doing this, why I feel so compelled to write this book. And so he checked it out and he was like, this is core shamanism 101. This is exactly it. And so from there, I was like, okay, well, I actually need to learn about this stuff. So I went to a shaman school for a year
Hmm.
and really studied through that. And shamanism is a really, really big tent. It's everything
Absolutely.
from, animal tracking to ancient songs, drumming and rattles, to speaking with the dead, to
Yeah,
doing what I do, which is channeling. Like there's so many different ways to
that's right.
experience shamanism. So I went to the shaman school, and the coolest thing about it is they kind of displayed for you, like in each class was kind of like a just a touch point on
Sure.
some of the main topics, right? And so then you got to then choose how you were being called to
Yeah,
study. And then from there, each person then goes on the road
hmm,
of discovering their own
right,
personal special spiritual gifts.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's
But that's the main goal is to create this way of entertaining people that also evolves them.
right. That's an interesting concept and outlay to the opportunity we have to present the information in a way that is different and maybe a little bit more palatable in that genre, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and
So,
this character that I created is I hopefully really relatable. He's just your average, very damaged person. He's nothing special at all, and it's him trying to work through a really horrific past, much like I have in my own life. And well, it's all based on my life actually,
mhm,
but it's
mhm,
character. So this character, it helped me because my past was crap and my future with this crippling neurological movement disorder, my future was crap. So where does that leave me? If it's
mhm,
all just terrible, if my past is terrible, if my future looks terrible, what do I do with that? Well, what I
mhm,
had to ultimately do with that is turn my neurological movement disorder into my superpower.
mhm,
And once I started to view it in that light,
mhm,
that this was an incredible gift that
mhm.
I've been given. And why is it here? And what is it teaching me? Oh my gosh, it changed everything.
Yeah.
Suddenly, Dystonia was teaching me every single day grace. It was teaching me every single day how to
Mhm,
be available to help, how to ask for help, how to be, not this big, strong, impressive dude up on stage, but to truly, genuinely be me as a human,
mhm, mhm.
back in touch with what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting that we have all these personas and facades and identities that we wear and hone into as we go through this beautiful gift of life. And don't really see it as an opportunity for us to drop all of those pieces so we can truly step into that place of worthiness and
Right,
love and compassion because ultimately that's what's going to lead us to wherever it's going to be, call it home, call it universe, call it God, whatever you're going to call it. That's where it's all going to lead us to. But
right,
it's only until we tune into an opportunity
right,
that we can get there. An opportunity, as you've said, which is often positioned as a problem.
right. And how you tune into what you just said is through stillness. How you tune into everything that you're looking through, whether it's wholeness, whether it's health, whether it's your
Right.
position in the world, whether it's just life in general.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Everything will be and can only ever be granted to self by self.
Yeah.
If there's something that you're missing in your life, it's because you yourself haven't granted it to yourself.
Hmm.
Right. And it all starts there. And it certainly did with my health. Once I started like really blessing myself, right? Really calling in all the gifts. Every day I'd bless myself. Every day I'd tell me how happy and healthy and wealthy and wise I
Hmm.
was. Every day I was calling it in and blessing myself and granting it to myself. That's not
Hmm.
anybody else's job, right?
No.
That's, spirituality for me is a journey for one,
Yeah.
right? And it's me giving myself health, giving myself wealth, giving myself wisdom, and giving myself happiness in the world, right? And so, again, like when you first start this process, you're like, okay, I feel a little delusional because like none of this actually feels
Right.
real, right? But
Right.
it will over time. And again, if you spend the time, for me, it was 3 hours a day. I meditated 3 hours a day for years
Mm-hmm.
to get to the shift, right? Getting back into control, getting back into the place where I'm calling the shots on my life because I know how powerful of a manifester I am.
Hmm. Hmm.
You don't have problems at that level. You're like, oh, I'm
Right.
just not manifesting quite correctly. Let me just change that
Let
and
me just move
be
it.
in something else.
Exactly. But the prelude to that is where perhaps on a larger scale, humanity might be a little challenged. In the prelude of, am I even worthy of it? Do I have the power to do it? Do I believe in it? Do I allow it to come through? Can I trust it? Like all of these other wounds come online. And in order to go through perhaps some of those to a place of, yes, I do feel worthy. Because regardless of how people move through the world, whatever titles, identities, and labels they have, executive, CEO, founder, whatever that is, there's always that inner part of them that is questioning that version of, am I truly worthy of this?
Sure. Right. And again, get back to stillness, right? And tell yourself, find your own holiness, stand in your own holiness, stand in your own worthiness, stand
Mhm.
in your power, right? To affect the matrix, because that's when it starts to get really interesting, right? When the matrix isn't affecting you, but you're affecting
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
That is very real. And
yeah.
like, I have witnessed people who are farther along than I by a great distance. Like I'm getting pretty good, but my teachers I stand in awe of because
Sure.
of what they can do. I mean, the instant manifestation for them is like not even a question. I mean, my
Yeah.
main teacher, he was like, "Oh, I'm feeling a little tight, this month." He went out and bought three scratchers,
Okay.
one on all three of them had
Mm.
like $2,000 in his hand in 15 minutes. I
Wow.
was like, "Oh my gosh."
Wow.
Like, how
That's
is this
impressive.
like? And to watch him function and walk through the world with that level of certainty of what he can do in the world, it like blows me away. It's just,
Mm.
and that's ultimately what we need
Yeah.
is we just need more examples of people like that. And so I had
Yeah.
one person really question me and they're like, well, what do you do about somebody who just won't evolve? And I'm like, you just be a good example.
You don't
You
do
show
anything.
them
Yeah.
that joy is still an option.
That's
Get
right.
them out of joy. I mean, get them into joy.
Into
Get them
joy.
out of their
Mm.
head. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's all you can do. The rest of the work is on them because
That's
again, to be
right.
sovereign from that person, from that unhealthy and toxic individual,
Yeah.
right, takes a threat. Suddenly they're not a
Absolutely.
threat to you because it's just they're over there and you're over here and you know where you are and you're not triggered or, you know, attached to them in any
Hmm.
way.
Hmm. Hmm. And it's a beautiful opportunity to truly embody it and embrace it and relish it for yourself. Because
Mhm.
as important as it is for us to be examples for others so they can witness it and see and feel it,
Yeah.
as you've said many a times, this is our solo journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we get to relish in this awareness and just as we do in the pain, because
Uh-huh.
that's from my perspective, that's what we're here to witness and
Right.
resolve and go through. But we get to enjoy all the
Yeah.
fruits of our own labor and be
Yeah.
in our little big world
Yeah. Yeah.
of
That's the,
what we're doing. And I think that's where the true magic is we get to live on a whole different plane.
Yeah, I mean, we become the only beneficiary of our own personal work, right? And that's why we do it because it becomes lighter and more fun, and you become more lit up. And especially when you learn how to light your own lights. And
Mm,
this is the thing I really talk about in my practice a lot, right? To be able to have the ability to light your own lights.
hmm.
That's nobody else's responsibility when it
That's
comes to
right.
when it
That's
comes to
right.
being seen, even,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You do not need others. Anything you are lacking is that which you have not granted to self.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
again, you'll be the only beneficiary of this work that you do for yourself. Whereas if you go to like work to make money and stuff like this, there's somebody else who's benefiting from your work, right? But not in
Hmm.
this stuff.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
In this personal work, you're the only beneficiary, and it just gets better and better and better and more fun, and you become more wealthy just because you're more joyful. Like it's the
Yes.
craziest process. Oh, and your
Yeah.
skin clears up.
And wealthy on many levels. So
Oh, for
not
sure.
just monetary and currency, but wealthy in your own health, in your
Yeah,
relationships, in the
yeah,
things that you see, even the
right.
wealth of seeing beautiful plants and seeing beautiful
Yes.
things. We tune into that awareness, which I think is so enriching and so beautiful. We
Yeah,
forget.
yeah,
We forget.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like with some people they come into my coaching session and they're tired, right? And they're just kind of beaten down and I'm like, you're just not seeing it. You're not seeing it, right? You're not
Mm.
tired. You're uninspired.
Mm.
Can you do to inspire yourself? Because when you're
Right.
inspired, like you can just go, go, go. You don't have to eat. You're just like endlessly lit up with energy and
That's
you're just
right.
going because you're in inspiration,
That's
right?
right.
And that's the key
Yeah,
to energy is
it is.
inspiration.
It is. I love it. I love it. Dale, I could do at least another hour with you and just unwrap and unfold and different perspectives and examples
Yes,
and all of that.
sure.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Um, but I'm so grateful. Extremely grateful for your sharing of your story and your very eventful and delightful journey from, little ballerina shoes or ballet
Yeah,
shoes
yeah,
all the way to big stage, big lights,
yeah.
and now into this place of a channel to spread the message and share the gifts with others on their own evolution. I'm so
Oh,
grateful for your story. I'm so grateful for you to take the time out to share it with me so I can share it with the rest of the world. So thank you for being on the show.
well, thank you for the invitation. It's been a joy.
Thank you. I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.